We're going to be talking about an important concept that's relevant to Vedic astrology, and that's going to be karma and also reincarnation, because it's so important to understand those concepts to get an idea of what exactly are we looking at when we look at an astrology chart. So today's going to be a class where we talk about karma and reincarnation. This is by popular request. I've had a few clients suggest this and also some subscribers. If you're new to this channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. And also, there is a discount for the holidays, both November and December, 40% off if you use codename Thor at checkout. So make sure you check that out. Also, this is a reminder that this is Vedic sidereal astrology, not Western tropical astrology. So your sign may be different using this system. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about karma. And we're going to also talk about reincarnation, because these are very important subjects to really understand when we're talking about Vedic astrology, because it's more than just people think of it as a divinatory system, but it's even more than that. There's a cause for all of these karmic experiences that happen in your life. So let's talk about karma. Now, karma is the Sanskrit word, and kama is the Pali word. So one is used in the context of Hindu thought, and then the other one is in Buddhist thought. So karma or kama is what they call it in Pali. And what karma is it's the actions of your body, speech, and mind, which have effects within the current lifetime or future lifetimes. So a lot of people think it's just your physical actions, but this actually applies to even words you say or certain mental tendencies or thought patterns you have. If you think about it, things like obsessions and things like anger usually have a karmic result. So that's what we're talking about with even mental tendencies that can result in karma. The astrological chart is a representation of your karma. So that's what it is. So when we're looking at the planets, the houses, the signs, all these are just basically archetypes or symbolic representations of your karma. So, for example, if we're looking at the sun, it's going to be your relationship with father figures or your father, or even your relationship with authority. Okay, how do you use authority? And depending on what sign it's in, it could be very weak or it could be very strong. Maybe you have a lot of natural leadership capabilities, or maybe you don't. And that would be one of the ways we could look at your chart. Now, every action that you take, whether it be speech, thoughts, or deeds, it creates karmic seeds. So if you want to think about, like, if you had a farm and you're casting out seeds, that's what essentially we're doing every moment of every day. We're essentially sowing these seeds just like a farmer would, and we're planting a field. Some of these seeds might sprout within the current lifetime. Some of these seeds may be many lifetimes before they sprout. So that's something to think about. It's not always within the current lifetime that these seeds will sprout. Now, there are good, bad, and neutral karmas. So there's good karmas like pleasurable experiences, pleasant experiences, like maybe we get the money we want or the career we want, or maybe we get the big house. Those would be seen as positive karmas, positive experiences. There's bad ones, like, for example, you lose your job or you get a divorce, or you have some sort of invalidation. That would be a negative karma. Then there's neutral karmas. I mean, if you think about it, there are neutral karmas. Do you like, what flavor of ice cream do you like? That's kind of a neutral karma. Now, mental tendencies and habits are also karmas. Okay, so the way you think, your thought patterns, are you a pessimistic person, are you an optimistic person? That's all part of your karma as well, and you've probably come across all sorts of those different type of people in your lives. Let's go to the next slide here. Now, there's a good analogy, and I've heard this analogy when I've taken classes in the past, so I'm going to use the same analogy. Now, I spelled body wrong, so forgive that. So every action, body thoughts and words, body, speech, mind, is like an arrow being shot by an archer. Okay. So if you want to think about every time you're having a thought, a word, you're saying something, or you're doing something, you're shooting an arrow, just like one of those like British longbowmen. Okay. You're shooting one of those arrows out into the air, and that is the karmic cause that's happened. Okay. So you've created that karmic cause or karmic seed, and now the arrow's in the air. That the arrow may travel a far distance or a short distance. We really don't know. Depends on how strong it is, right? So this is the analogy of this karmic cause may ripen within the current lifetime or future lifetimes. So, for example, people always ask, why do good things happen to bad people? You might have somebody that's very morally questionable and they're having all this success in their life. They're getting a lot of money, they're getting a lot of praise, they're getting a lot of success. And people are wondering, why is a negative person who's harming a lot of people getting a lot of positive results? Well, the results or the karmic seeds might be blossoming from past lifetimes, not from the current lifetime. And so the inverse is also, why do bad things happen to good people? So many of us have asked that question. So again, it's these things that happen in past lives that we might not consciously remember that we're reaping within the current lifetime. So all these actions produce results. By the way, if you are somebody and let's say you're reaping a lot of good results, but you're being a very negative or evil person, you're still producing a karmic debt. Okay. And maybe that debt gets paid later within the lifetime, or the debt will get paid within future lifetimes. So for example, if you let's say you take advantage of somebody financially, you do something where you take advantage of them and you harm somebody in some sort of way. Well, that result, according to the law of karma, you will have a similar experience within the current lifetime or future lifetimes of a similar action that takes place. Okay. So you will experience that result within a future lifetime. All right, let's talk about reincarnation. So karma is really what keeps us reincarnating. Okay, the reason why we keep reincarnating is we have these karmas that we produce in past lives and this current life. So it keeps us in this cycle. So the idea of reincarnation is held by many different types of belief systems. So for example, in Hinduism, Buddhism, and New Age groups, and then there's just a lot of people that believe in it. All sorts of different groups and religions. There's a lot of people that even have memories of past lives. There's people that are born and they'll just remember them. Many of us don't, but there's a lot of people that do. Now, it's interesting, and I wanted to give you a few examples of some of the beliefs about reincarnation from the different groups or the different religions out there, because what I really want to point out is that you can have different thoughts about what's happening within this reincarnational cycle, but it really doesn't matter. Your Vedic astrology chart will still be, it will still interpret whether you're Hindu or you're New Age or you're a Buddhist. Your Vedic astrology chart will still be relevant. Okay, so it's still going to give you an interpretation of what kind of karma is going to unfold. So it doesn't really matter what belief system you particularly have. Okay. So in Hinduism, what they believe, when you're reincarnating, there's a soul. So they call it the Jiva Atman. And this small self, the Jiva Atman, is essentially reincarnating. It's like a soul. It's reincarnating through these lifetimes. It has these karmic, debits or these karmic credits. Okay. And eventually, when that Jiva Atman realizes that the self, the bigger, larger self, which is the Atman, the supreme self, then that's when enlightenment occurs and you're essentially out of the reincarnational cycle. In Buddhism, they view it a little bit different. So in Buddhism, there is some differences there. They don't necessarily believe there's a soul or a self. So in Buddhism, they believe there's like a mind stream that's reincarnating. So there's this collection of mind stream that has all these karmic causes and mental tendencies. It's this package of mind stream that's essentially has this momentum that keeps on reincarnating. And essentially, once you realize emptiness, like what the Buddha realized, if we want to say nirvana, but once you realize emptiness and you realize the underlying reality of everything, you're not attached to the karma anymore. You're not averse to anything, and you're not chasing after anything. So you get out of the cycle through realizing emptiness. Then there's a new age concept. Some of you might be familiar with this, that there's a higher self. So there's a higher self that's essentially living itself through you and having paying back karma and also gathering different lifetime experiences. So a lot of people believe that. And there's also a belief system which I'm calling the dark new age, because I've come across this belief system in some of my studies and watching videos. And it's this idea that there's a soul that's caught in some sort of reincarnational net, either by accident or, maybe you were, caught by some ETs or whatever beings are out there. But this reincarnational net was set up by these negative beings to somehow harvest life force, and we're being constantly recycled. So this is it's a really pessimistic way of looking at things, but still, I would say Vedic astrology would even work for that if you have that belief that we're maybe in a negative reincarnational net set up by negative beings that are trying to harvest our life force. But like I said at the bottom, and I just said earlier, whatever belief system you have about reincarnation, Vedic astrology is a system of describing various karmic timelines. There's also some, I read somewhere that also they even believe that some of the early Christians, like really early Christians, pre the councils that they had in Constantinople and things like that, that some of them even believed in reincarnation. I'd have to look into that more, but I've heard that even there was an idea of reincarnation among some of the earlier Christians. All right, so let's talk about samsara. Samsara is cyclic existence. So this idea that we keep on having these rebirths, that's what samsara is. We're kind of stuck in this loop, okay? So the rounds of rebirth that are driven by karma, that's samsara. I would also add desire. We always have these unfulfilled desires that keep us chasing, because enlightenment is essentially you're not, you realize the reality of things, but you're also not chasing any desires anymore. You're done with it. So even good karma can keep us stuck. So even just this good karma of wanting these pleasurable experiences, that's why a lot of spiritual teachers will talk about this idea of, you don't want to be attached to anything. You don't want to be averse to anything, and you don't want to be attached. You want to be at that middle point, the middle way. So how does samsara work? Okay. And like I said, there's different belief systems, like we talked about in the previous slide. Samsara works like this, and this is a really basic example. For example, if a person wrongs someone in some way, the negative action causes the other person to harbor negative mental tendencies. For example, revenge, anger. Okay, so and this person might take action on those mental tendencies, or those mental tendencies will stay unresolved and suppressed within the person, and they're going to manifest within a future lifetime. So essentially, if these karmic seeds are not resolved or purified, you're going to be stuck in this cycle. So a lot of times it's these victimizer loops that essentially happen with reincarnation. So in one lifetime, you're maybe the person that got wronged, and then in another lifetime, you're the wrongdoer. Okay, so it can be this never-ending cycle. Just like on this planet, how we see there's these never-ending cycles of tit for tat and different things like that. So even pleasurable experiences can become addictive and be causes to be stuck within karmic loops as well. So people get addicted. People want money, they want more experiences, they can't get enough. And we've seen people, it lead to people's downfalls. But those addictions, those addictive qualities will keep you stuck within samsara. Now, the way to purify these negative karmic seeds is through religious practices, and I call that dharma, and seeking enlightenment. So let me turn off the slideshow here. So, I'm not going to specifically give you a specific religion to believe in. There's all sorts of ways, depending on what religious preferences you have to deal with those karmas. So, for example, in Vedic astrology, there are remedies, and I made some videos, and I might even make a new video about the planetary remedies that they have in Vedic astrology to mitigate or to increase the positive karmas. So there's all sorts of ways. Within Hinduism, you have things like pujas. You have the same thing in Buddhism, like pujas, ways of removing obstacles, are purifying things through confession in different religions. So there's ways, and that's going to be your dharma. A lot of times you can look at your chart and see what your dharmic path is going to be, what's going to help you purify that karma, some of those seeds maybe that are dormant within your consciousness, so that they don't sprout, because we don't want those negative seeds to sprout. And essentially, when we seek moksha or enlightenment or nirvana, we eventually don't even want the positive karma. We want to get out of cyclic existence. And this usually happens. This is a natural effect that everyone will go through. The theory is that eventually people get burnt out on it on enough lifetimes, and people eventually seek enlightenment. So it's kind of like inevitable that people will seek enlightenment, but they can be in this cyclic existence for many eons. So I hope you learned a lot today. Your Vedic astrology chart, we'll get more into the mechanics of astrology in some of my future classes, the series. But we'll talk about more of the mechanics. What do the planets represent? What do the houses represent? The signs represent? And then also some of the other belief fundamental ideas with Vedic astrology as well. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below. If you have any suggestions for any videos, please let me know. I'm also going to be doing, looking at charts and stuff, and then the occasional class video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.